Welcome back to Bridging the Gap, everybody. My name is Byron Nash, here with my buddy.
Johnny Angel.
All right, man, we have a great episode today.
I know, man. I'm looking forward to chatting.
We have a guest that we both have in common.
Yes.
Looking forward.
Mr. Bill Henry's with us.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
And well, I'm thinking about Bill Henry, and of course, when we try to tie some music to our guests and this and that, and most of the people that I would have normally brought on and talk about, we have already talked about.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get you with something different when we get to the albums. But I wanted to ask you your feelings about how the crowd has such a big role in how play in your performance.
Yeah.
And how important is it to have a big one, a small crowd? It don't matter.
For me personally, I mean, obviously, who doesn't want a big crowd? You know, the more volume, the more energy, the more you can kind of like feed off of that. And I think that's great. But me as an artist, as an individual, I try to make sure that I put myself in these uncomfortable situations, like playing nursing homes and libraries and weird things that aren't really, they're gigs, but they're not like a big concert, where I might not get any reaction when a song's over. Because if I lose sight of needing people to make me feel good about the music, I feel like I'll get lost somewhere in there. So the band's rocking, we got big crowds, that's awesome. But I also kind of take it back to this uncomfortable place of like, why do I do this? So some of my best shows have been 10 people.
Absolutely.
Where something special comes out because it wasn't a big distraction.
It does test you as an artist.
It does.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're like sweat bullets, like super nervous, How about you? Because you're used to pretty big audiences. That last show you did was like packed.
Yeah, our last show was big, but I remember performing like at Star Lake Amphitheater and Three River Stadium and stuff like that. At one point we played for 80,000 people. And it's like, when you're on that stage, that I try to read my audience. I'm from the old school of up close and personal. But the big gigs, although they're very good for your ego, I'm not a big fan of the big gig. I'd much rather be in a club setting, in a close-up setting. And I remember we played this one. I won't mention their name, but we had a gig. It was in December, back when the band was hot. I mean, really hot. And we had the snowstorm, and so I called the club owner and I said, it's kind of crazy. I said, but nobody can drive, and you're going to lose money. I'll send you back your deposit. And he said, did I have a contract with you? And I said, yeah. He said, are you going to be here? And I said, well, that's what I'm saying. We don't have to. And he said, nope, you'll be here. So we thought, what's wrong with this guy, right? We drive all the way up north. I won't say where it was. But we walked in, and the only people that were there were him, his wife, two of his daughters, and his wait staff. That was it. No one showed up. And he said, we did 2 full shows, costumes and everything, beginning to end. Might have been one of the best shows we've ever done.
See?
And when he was leaving, the gentleman, I should say his name because I love him to death, but he paid the band, and then he went around to each one of my guys and put a certain amount of money in each person's pocket. And it was like the appreciation level. You know what I mean, man? So don't ever underestimate the gig.
No, ever. You got to respect the gig.
Absolutely.
For sure. So what have you been listening to?
Well, today, I'm normally, I listen to Tower of Power, and I'm listening
That's
to
why you got
the
the shirt.
Meters. Yeah, I love Tia Pip. They're one of my favorite bands of all time, right? And they're so good, they're so funky, they're everything they do is
tight.
Tight. And then I was listening to the Meters for a while because, again, same thing, less amount of people, tight as it can get. You know what I mean? But I pulled out this old album by the Dynatones.
Oh.
No, there's
not familiar.
The record's called Fife Piper. It's really hard to get 45 RPM.
Oh, okay.
It's all instrumentals, and most of them are, except for Fife Piper, they are all remakes of hit songs from the day, soul songs, and they do instrumentals of them. And it's really cool, man, because they improvise, what I mean?
Yeah.
And when I was thinking about them, I was thinking about our guests, because, I mean, you talk about improvising and getting into his crowd. I mean, we'll get into that in a minute, but Dynatones.
Awesome. That would be good for sampling. Had to go with Stevie Wonder and Intervisions. He's still my favorite artist, of all time. And something about this record, I think it's the one where I got really deep into his music and like really, I knew the songs and grew up with all the stuff, but this is when I really started listening to this, and then the records going back, because there was like a little period where he was dropping a record every year. And those early ones, like Where I'm Coming From and things like that, Music of My Mind, those are my favorites, but this is sort of like the one that really pulled it all together. But you can hear it. The thing about Stevie's music too, you have to understand, is that he was they would give him gear to test out before they would release gear. So a lot of the sounds you would hear on his records, he was like one of the first people that would have it, because they would see, what do you think of this? He had played Orange Amps. He would do all the things with the Moog and all that stuff. So this is one of my favorite
Love the guy.
of all time.
So let's talk about what we're going to bring up here, because I'm kind of excited because I haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite young entertainers. And we're talking about Bill Henry. So stick around and we'll be right back with you.
Jack in the Box.
Welcome to Jack in the Box. Hey, what time's the movie start, by the way? We're here at the theater. No, we're not. We're talking about Steve Allen. How many of you grew up with the Steve Allen Show, right? In the early days of television, The Tonight Show, you know what I mean? He used to do his Man on the Street. He used to do this thing about the hipsters. He actually did Aesop's Fables, and he did them like a hipster would call it, like a beatnik, right? And he was a piano player, classical piano player, right? And he actually had some of the big stars on his show before they were big stars, like Elvis Presley. But this is kind of cool because this is Steve Allen's Aesop Fables hip version. It's Ginchy. Welcome back, and we're sitting here with my buddy, Mr. Bill Henry, right here, huh? And everybody knows Bill Henry, right?
Thanks for
having me on. Appreciate it.
Good to have you here. We're going to chat, man, about where it all started and how it's going. And I was kind of like talking about, you used to play at my place at Atria's, and you used to crush it, man.
I appreciate it. We had some fun.
I'm telling you, man, you know how to work an audience, and we were talking about that earlier. So why don't we just get into that first, about working an audience. You do such a great job at it, but how important is that to you?
Well, it's extremely important, and again, you mentioned, regardless of the size of the audience, what I found is if you try to have the same approach for a large audience that you do with a small, you tend to fail. Yeah. So it's kind of about reverse engineering and figuring out, number one, who your audience is, how many people are there, the vibe and the energy of the room, and then figure out a way to play to that. And normally, if you can do that, and that took me a lot of practice. So for even prior to us starting the Bill Henry Band, I played with probably over the course of 18 months just by myself with a bunch of different projects, acoustic shows, anything and everything at Giant Eagle Market Districts for a while. And those are the ones that really make you pay your dues and figure out how to make sure that each gig goes to be quote unquote successful.
Absolutely.
So that for me played a big part in being able to read a room, being able to be comfortable and entertain. A lot of times people have asked, well, what's the difference between making a gig successful or unsuccessful? And it's really about entertaining, not just playing. There's a lot of successful musicians and a lot of just amazing talent, but if you don't know how to also entertain and kind of break that fourth wall, it's essentially useless.
Right. As I said earlier, definitely about your ability to read your audience, but where did it all start for you? How many years ago? When did you get started?
When I got started, playing guitar specifically, I was about 17. I actually had a friend of mine, his name is Al Torrance. We went to school together, and I'll never forget the end of our sophomore year. It was a very casual last day of school, and he brings his acoustic guitar, and he's sitting there, and he's very classic rock influenced, so he's playing Eagles and Skynyrd and Guns N' Roses, and I'm watching the rest of the class, even an abbreviated sized classroom, just mesmerized. And at the time, my mom had an acoustic guitar too, and I didn't know how to read music. I didn't know how to play at all. Just started messing with it over the summer, and fast forward, was super influenced by Eric Clapton.
Oh yeah.
And this is the time. This is probably 2006, 2007. YouTube is just first getting going, and I was able to just watch all these from everything from Derek and the Dominoes to all through his solo career in the 80s, and just watch the way he played, and went down a rabbit hole of obsession. And I think what probably made my parents realize I was serious was that I could play his greatest hits album just off of ear, And no, I had the solos nailed down. So everything that. So my music career started earlier than that. Being involved in the church. My dad's a Lutheran pastor.
Nice.
So that always had some roots to it. But it wasn't until maybe I was 17 or 18, and then not fast forward. Went to college. Did 2 years at Slippery Rock, 2 years at Point Park. And wasn't playing a lot then. And then finally started getting back into the jam night scene. And it was probably when I was like 23 or 24. And I just said, I don't want to wake up one day and say I wish I would have done this more consistently. So my goal in I think 2013 or 2014 was I want to just do 1 gig a week. So I called every bar and club I knew that had music. And fast forward to the end of 2015, I had about 150 gigs with everybody, being a filling guitar player, solo, like I said, the Giant Eagle Market District gigs. And then shortly thereafter, put the band together.
Absolutely. I love it, man. And as I was saying before, you can't teach somebody the art of reading the audience. And you have it mastered. You really do.
Thank you.
And I'm very proud to tell people that here's a young guy that I've seen knows what he's doing, especially with the people, right?
Yeah.
And we were talking about the size of crowds and everything else. But when you worked at my Atrias, man, you should go out in the audience. And again, you had that feel.
One of the particular times I remember at your club was it was a Sunday night after. I think all the gigs we had were on Sunday nights, and this was post Steeler game.
Yeah.
And it was probably about 23 degrees, and it's one of those situations where you're hoping there's a crowd, you're hoping people want to endure the cold weather, and I think that particular time our keyboardist Larry. He was having some car issues, so he couldn't get there on time. So now I'm panicking, being the front man, trying to figure out on a business end of things and on the crowd end of things, and again, just sometimes breaking that fourth wall and just being a little bit more relaxed and casual and playing to the room. It was one of the most memorable nights that we've done there.
It was a great night, man. And I don't know if you knew it or not, but a lot of my musician friends hung out there. And my buddy Al was there. And he come over and said, "Damn, dude," because we always talk about the younger generation and
sure,
and they're going to carry it on and this and that. And when I see people like yourself, I see that it's going to carry on.
Sure.
That's
Thank
cool.
you very much.
What made you so interested in the sort of soul meets R&B direction? Like, were you doing a lot of that stuff when you were doing sort of the getting your chops together, and like Clapton was the guitar part,
sure,
but then like musically it seems like soul and like R&B.
Musically I wasn't, to be honest.
Yeah.
I always had a greater love for it than actually becoming a student of it. And so when I started, obviously Clapton and Stevie Ray Vaughan and B.B. King, I was more influenced at the time by blues guys. So I followed in that scene, and my dad, it's a blessing to have him so well-rounded in terms of music. He is everything from Motown to Gregorian chant in his office, and it kind of helped me.
Yeah.
But as far as R&B goes, no, I really had to study. I had to sit down. I thought I knew a lot about R&B, and I'm still learning right now.
Yeah.
And so, you'd mentioned about finding a record, and then kind of breaking it down, and then going back to see what was further before that. And so I'm still kind of in the process of learning R&B and learning. Getting more tasteful with my chord phrasings, doing certain things, because every genre has a lot of specific things that if you have to trace it well enough to know where it started. So right now I'm dissecting a lot of different 70s like R&B rhythm guitar guys. Yeah. And I think now modern R&B is controlled by keys. Yep. And I was always like, well, why are there no keys? Yeah. And I was talking to Randy's brother Richard, and he was like, there were no portable keyboards. Yeah. It was all the guitarist was the rhythm section. So still trying to study that.
Awesome. So what's next musically? What direction do you hear your band or yourself going?
Sure. So we have, especially since 2020, we have some songs saved that we're trying to make sure that they're the most polished they can be on terms of original music to release. So we're still working on that. So for sure there will be at least a small EP, if not a full album, released by the end of the year. Our first one, it's hard to believe it's going on 4 years old. Who put it out at the end of 2019. So that's what's on the forefront for us now.
Okay. Cool, man. We have this section where we just hit you with a question. It's something old, something new, something treasured, something true. Whatever comes to mind. It can be personal, professional, something that people know about you, don't know about you, that you want to share with people.
Okay,
Let's start with something old. As I can. Yeah.
Something old. My first guitar I was ever given was a 1976 Alvarez acoustic.
Ooh.
Nice.
All right.
Not like starting at the top. Huh?
That's right.
Yeah, really. Set the bar high.
Something new.
Something new. I'm very, very encouraged and refreshed by specifically the female R&B singers in the last 2 years. I feel like they're killing it. I think all genres go in waves, and right now they're crushing it in terms of the songwriting, the honesty of the approach. In my opinion, that wasn't there since probably the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Something treasured.
Something treasured. My parents.
I love that answer, man. And something true.
Music. I went on a cruise when I was probably 21, a friend of the family's. And I'll never forget the way you were telling the story before my segment about, I asked you how old was that gig that you had where you remembered where you played for the staff and,
right.
and everything. And that was over 40 years ago. So something that stuck with me is we're sitting, if you've been on a cruise, normally they stick you with 2 or 3 different groups of people. And speaking to a gentleman that sat next to me for 5 days, and we had gotten to talk about music, and I was very, very unseasoned at that point. And he said just something at the end of the trip. He said, "It's nice to meet you." He said, "Stick with the music. It'll never let you down." And there are certain times where we all have highs and lows. And it seems like that sometimes when I want to isolate myself from people, especially, I'm a very introverted person sometimes. And that's kind of when you get the most out of the love of music.
Mm-hmm.
Is when you can... You learn more about something you didn't, a new record, a new group.
Yeah.
So that is something that has constantly been recycled. So
beautiful. And you're right, man. When it comes to music, I cannot function without it.
Right.
It's like
right.
Just about every light switch in my house, when you turn the light on, the radio goes on or something.
Really? I can see that.
We're going to jam. You feel like jamming?
I do feel like jamming.
Awesome. We're going to be right back at you with Bill Henry. We're going to jam.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Byron's Bodega. So when I was a little kid, my mom would drop me off at my Auntie Regina's house, and I would cry when she left. And the only thing she said that would keep me from crying was I would say, "Play Screaming Face record." It was Funkadelic Maggot Brain right here. So when I was able to score this picture disc, 4-record picture disc, I don't know, I got this probably in the 90s. Boom. My childhood came all running back to me. So my style of guitar actually comes from Eddie Hazel. I don't really credit him that much when I say who my favorite guitar players are, but he is actually a huge reason of why I sound the way that I do. And this box set is sort of the epitome of like my core sound. So I want to thank my mom for that, but I'm also really grateful that I was able to score this.
be a fool, wishing for a day that I could change the world, and I would be the sunlight in your universe. You would think my love was really something good, baby. If I could change the world.
Sweet. That was awesome. That was awesome. That's great. I forgot about all those like little changes, and I was like,